You are the author of this book, Ancient China's Tao Te Ching in Gonzo, by Nobody Xpecial. Personal Circumstances and Writing Choices. Tao Te Ching's Introduction to the Indo-European Language Family. What is known about Tao Te Ching's long history in the Far East is well documented in English. The story of Tao Te Ching's arrival in Western Europe is less often told. The way I tell this story begins in the 6th century, when the bacterium Yersinia pestis arrived in the Mediterranean basin and spread to parts of Europe and the Near East. Rome lost an approximate 10% of its population during the plague of Justinian. At the time, Western European Romans had been Catholic for almost 2 centuries. 8 centuries later, a direct descendant of Justinian Yersinia pestis reappeared across Europe. This time around, 75% of Europe's population perished from an infection in the lymphatic system. Black Death reached London in November of 1348 and spread to Moscow by 1352. The event marks a major turning point in Europe's history. Few Europeans were literate at the time. In most cases, European scribes were educated in Catholic monasteries. They worked to preserve the Holy Bible by handwritten copy, as had been their tradition for over a millennium. Prior to Black Death, debate had brewed among European scholars between interpretations of the Holy Bible and also secularism. On the outro of the Black Death, these debates flared as fueled by questions of God's universality, character, and work. Surviving scribes turned attention to hunt down whatever information they could find to bolster and refine their beliefs. Some of them set out to hunt down information on human health and the workings of life. Roman Catholic scholars mounted what would become a centuries-long campaign of traveling for information and returning it to the Pope. This way, volumes of Greek and Egyptian health information were translated to Latin. Gathered information was sometimes contradictory and sometimes preposterous. A great reconciliation commenced under the guidance of peer review. Anatomical study of the human body began in earnest and bore discoveries as basic as the heart pumps blood through arteries. The scientific method and the Indo-European medical conversation made a slow emergence out of religious practice. In 2026, Latin continues to live in the Holy See. It continues to preserve the Holy Bible and supports biomedical research around the globe. Through this ordeal, medieval scholars noticed that some ideas from faraway places held a transferable power and usefulness. If God's work was universal, then it follows that his traces are observable in all places. By 1534, St. Ignatius of Loyola gathered 6 Catholic scholar priests from Navarre, Castile, Savoy, and Portugal to extend the Pope's reach. The Jesuit order was formed and began traditions which continue at the time of this printing. Representing a diversity of Indo-European languages, these scholar priests shared a fluency in Latin. They gathered around a twofold mission: an efferent mission to evangelize the word of Jesus Christ, and an afferent mission to understand the universality of God's truth. Saint Francis Xavier was the first to set out from mainland China. In 1552, he died from an illness on the island of Shangchuan, about 1,300 miles from reaching the emperor in Beijing. Soon after St. Francis's death, the Society of Jesus created the Jesuit China missions. In 1601, after studying in Shangchuan to become fluent in traditional Chinese, Italian Jesuit priest Matteo Ricci became the first European to enter the Forbidden City of Beijing. He established trust relationships with counterparts there, gained access to secretive libraries, and asked to invite more Jesuit scholar priests. Ricci identified parallels between Christianity and Confucianism, but denied Buddhism. During the 175 years of relationship building to follow, Jesuit missionaries traveled into the far reaches of China. Among many other documents, Tao Te Ching was shared with and discovered by the Jesuit missionaries. Later, they would cite Tao Te Ching as evidence that, quote, the mysteries of the most holy Trinity and of the incarnate God were anciently known to the Chinese nation, end quote. In 1773, Pope Clement XIV dissolved the Jesuit order due to political pressures created by the Age of Enlightenment and growing sentiment for secular governance. The following year, all Christian missionaries were banned from China for generating converts, including Jesuit scholar priests. This is why in 1788, Tao Te Ching was presented to the Royal Society of London for Improving Natural Knowledge instead of to the Pope. The Royal Society had been granted a divine charter to self-govern by King Charles II of England, Scotland, and Ireland during the Stuart Restoration. In 2026, it is the oldest existing scientific academy in the world. Dissolution and banishment were not the Jesuits' undoing. Pope Pius VII restored them in 1814. 5 Jesuit missionaries returned to China in 1844, and 13 others joined them in 1846. The Latin copy of Tao Te Ching was translated in portion to French in 1820, and in full in 1842 by Jean-Jacques Saint-Pierre. Frederick von Schlegel translated it into German in 1821. In 1868, the first English copy was translated from Latin by John Chalmers. In 2.5 centuries since its debut in Latin, Tao Te Ching has been translated into Indo-European languages over 250 times, most often in English. Why not another?